Today, we're going to be going through all 3-cost cards plus some others that would do well or maybe not so well in a Silver Surfer deck. So let's see which cards make it S tier and which make it F tier. All right, so we have our list here, and we've got a lot of cards to go through. I picked all 3-cost cards plus cards that might make sense, might not. So let's go ahead and get started. We have Agent Coulson. So, you know, he's good 3 cost, 4 power, but that's not really great. Let's start him at D. I don't think he's the worst. He fits into Silver Surfer. He's going to give you a couple of cards in your hand, but really not a lot of benefit there. Next up, we have America Chavez. The reason I have her on this list is because theoretically she can thin out your deck and maybe make you pull the cards that you want to get, but is that super helpful in a deck where you're going to have limited card play as it is? You're going to always draw her on turn 6, which means you might be hoping to get that Silver Surfer and then you don't. I'm going to put Chavez C. If you don't get your Silver Surfer, you do have 9 power to place down, so not the worst. Next up, we have Beast. Despite what it says here, he's actually a 3/4, but again, kind of like Agent Coulson, you have the 4 power, sure, but I'm going to put him at D because his ability really doesn't do you anything for a Silver Surfer. We've got Bishop. We're going to go F tier on Bishop. You're not going to play enough cards to ramp him up too much. And Black Cat. I'm going to drop her in D tier. She is a 3/7, but the unreliability of being able to play her is just not good. Brood is S tier. You get 3 cards for 1. They're all 3-cost cards, and yes, it's only 2 power, but if you're able to proc Silver Surfer more than once, Brood gives you a lot of power for 1 drop. You may be Captain America, but I'm going to put you at B. He does give you 3 more power, but that's assuming you have 3 other cards there. If you're not able to drop as many cards as you want, he just lacks the power to really stand out in a Silver Surfer deck. Cerebro, F. Cosmo, we're going to drop in S tier. You get the advantages of Cosmo, which stops on reveals, but that's actually good for you potentially for cards like Maximus and some other 3-cost cards that we're going to talk about that could be seen to have a negative effect on you, but if you drop it on Cosmo, well, it doesn't matter. Cyclops. 3/4 is not that great, so we're going to drop him in D. Drakin. He is S tier in Silver Surfer. He's a 3/4, it's true, but it is easy to destroy the Muramasa shard. You're going to get him up to a 3/8 most likely, perhaps even a 3/10. And that's why we're seeing Drakin played in almost all Silver Surfer decks. Despite what it says here, Dazzler is actually a 3/2, and she gets +2 to all locations that you have full. Most likely with Brood and other cards, you will make her a 3/4 at least, and the fact that she has the potential to oftentimes be more, I think slots her in the C tier. It would be very tough to make her a 3/8. C tier seems appropriate. I'm actually dropping Deathlock into B tier. Now that may seem strange, but if you can drop Deathlock before you drop any other cards, you get a 3/5 power, which is pretty good in Silver Surfer. Debris is F tier. She's going to clog up your lanes with no benefit in Silver Surfer. Doctor Strange, let's drop Doctor Strange in D tier. You do have the potential of being able to move some of your cards to a different location to confuse the enemy, but is that ability really that useful in a Silver Surfer deck? Electro. He's going to go straight to F tier. You don't need to ramp up your cards in a Silver Surfer deck, and he's only a 3/2. Gambit, I'm going to drop B tier. If you're able to play him last turn, or you've already got your Silver Surfer out, you don't need to worry about discarding your card so much, and so you might destroy a pretty important enemy card. Green Goblin, I think D tier. Anytime that you can take up one of your enemy's card slots at a location is a great thing, plus you're giving them -3 power. Potentially, depending on the meta or wanting to stop Galactus, this could be a card that could be useful. Groot is actually going to drop in my A tier list. Making Groot a 3/6 after you've buffed him from Silver Surfer makes him pretty strong, and all you got to do is guess correctly where your enemy is going to play. Goose is not a 3-cost card, but he has a spot in a Surfer deck. We're going to give him a solid A tier. The reason for this is you need something to play on turn 2. Otherwise, you're just wasting power. So being able to restrict the size of cards that your opponent can play gives Goose a slot in your deck that isn't going to be taken up by very many other cards. HitMonkey is actually a 3-2, despite what it says here. He goes to C tier. Yeah, he starts off as a 3-2, but if you could play him on turn 6 with 2 other cards, he could be a 3-6. However, the fact that you have to play him on turn 6 to get the benefit out of him makes him C tier. Hulkbuster is 3-4. If you drop him on another card, he's not going to get the benefit of Silver Surfer. Iceman is a solid B tier. Yeah, he's only a 1-cost 2 power, but you do need a 1-cost to play in your deck. I think there are better 1-costs to play in Silver Surfer, but his disruption ability, as we all know, works very well and could have a place in your Surfer deck. Invisible Woman is actually a 2-3, not a 2-2. We're going to drop her in B tier. Being able to play your Silver Surfer behind her earlier in the game means that Silver Surfer won't be affected by negative locations or perhaps Iceman, who's going to make him cost more. So this is actually a good card for Silver Surfer, but not my personal favorite. Ironheart is slept on in Silver Surfer decks. We're going to drop her in B tier as well. If you think about it, naturally she'll be a 3-6, giving 2 power to 3 other cards. 3-6 is pretty decent for a Silver Surfer deck. Jean Grey is interesting. She's only a 3-3, but if you play her out on turn 3 and then you play, say, Brood on top of her, you've really restricted your opponent. You're able to play in other locations. So for that reason, Jean gets C tier. Jeff is A tier. He's not a 3-cost card. However, being able to play into any location is just too good. We all love Jeff. Juggernaut is so important for Silver Surfer, S tier for sure. With his combo with Storm, it's almost a necessity and is definitely one of the snapping conditions for your Silver Surfer deck. Killmonger is A tier. When he destroys Nova, you do get +1 power to all of your cards. Kingpin is D tier, 3-4, and his ability just not very helpful. Lady Sif, same thing again, just not useful, so D tier. Lockjaw, F tier. Luke Cage is actually a 2-2, and I'd say he's an A tier. With all of the negative locations, he's very, very useful in a Silver Surfer deck. Magic, she's actually been changed to a 3-2. She's got such a unique ability of adding 1 extra turn to the game. We're going to drop her in C tier. Now, she's not higher because with only 2 power and a 7th turn being possibly more beneficial to your opponent, but it could be an interesting play that could throw off your opponent. Maximus is S tier. Maximus is one of the backbones of a Silver Surfer deck with 3-7 power, and if you play him on Cosmo, his slightly negative by giving your opponent 2 cards is nullified. So Maximus is a great card for Silver Surfer, and if you're not including him, I'm interested to see what your strategy is. Mr. Fantastic is a solid A tier. He is 3-2 power, but of course gives 2 power to each other location. If you play him in the middle, that's all 3 locations with +2 power. Moon Knight is F tier. He does make your enemy discard a card, which is disruptive. He also makes you discard a card. Morph. It's just too much RNG to be useful, and really, who's playing Morph? Mystique, F tier. Mystique is an amazing card, not helpful because Silver Surfer is on reveal. Nakia is actually a 3-cost 3 power. She gives +1 power to all the cards in your hand when she is revealed. She has potential in a Silver Surfer deck. However, we're going to drop her in C tier because this is an interesting option, but there are better ones. Nebula is S tier in a Silver Surfer deck. Look, you've got to have a 1-cost card, and Nebula can just keep getting energy. I definitely see Nebula as one of the best cards you can put in a Silver Surfer deck, even though she doesn't get Silver Surfer's buff. Negasonic is actually a 3-5. She got a buff a while back, and she could be used at the end of the game to protect a location that you're already winning. However, her utility is difficult to use, so we're going to drop her in C tier. Nova is S tier. Similar to Nebula, you have to have a 1-drop card in your deck, and Nova can get destroyed by Killmonger or Deathlock, and both of those cards get Silver Surfer's buff. Once Nova is hit, all your other cards get +1. What more could you want in a Silver Surfer deck for only 1 cost? Patriot is a 3/1, and it's its own archetype all by itself. I know that there are Patriot Surfer decks. I haven't played them much. I'm going to drop Patriot personally at C tier. I see the potential. I know that there's cards that can work with it, and you can make a combo archetype deck with Patriot and Surfer, but not having the experience, I can't speak for how good those decks are, so I'm going to drop it at C tier personally. But let me know in the comments if you have good success with a Patriot Surfer deck. Polaris is a 3/5 and goes straight to A tier. Her ability to disrupt the opponent by moving one of their cards is a useful ability. Plus, she's a 3/5, which makes her real strong and is important for a Silver Surfer deck. Punisher is a 3/2 that gets +1 for every enemy card at a location. So potentially it could be a 3/6, which is fairly strong, but the condition is difficult to meet sometimes and just feels a little lackluster. Rhino is a 3/3 but goes to our A tier. The reason is because there are many locations that can mess up a Silver Surfer deck. Rhino can really save the day by getting rid of a bad location while still giving you 3 more power. Rogue is actually a 3/2, which makes her a little less bad feeling to play. She is slept on a lot of times, but she really deserves a B tier. The reason is she can steal ongoing abilities. You wait to play her until somebody plays their Morbius or some other ongoing card that they're really counting on, and suddenly that ability is gone for your opponent. It's very frustrating for them, and they're probably going to retreat. Sabretooth is a D tier, same as all the other 3/4 cards. Not particularly useful. It's still 4 power, so potentially could be used. Sauron is F tier. We don't want him taking abilities from our cards away in a Silver Surfer deck. That's it. Scarlet Witch is S tier. Although her RNG can occasionally, or more than occasionally, hurt you, the fact that she's a 2-drop but saves you potentially from bad locations is something that's really important for a Silver Surfer deck. So for that reason, she's actually very important to put in your Silver Surfer deck. Sarah is S tier. Really, when it comes down to it, Sarah is a backbone of the Silver Surfer archetype. It really lets you play 3 cards on turn 6. She's an essential card for your Silver Surfer deck. Shadow King is a 3-cost card, a 3/3. I think it's S tier. I love Shadow King. What he does to so many different decks on debuffing their cards and bringing them back down to their base power, that's so frustrating when you're on the other end of it, and so good in your Silver Surfer deck. Shang-Chi is a 4-cost, 3-power card. His importance in Marvel Snap is clear. He can destroy large cards, but he's awkward in a Silver Surfer deck. You can't really play a 3-cost card with him, so he just feels difficult to play and usually gets cut. But we're going to put him in C tier because he could have a place in a Silver Surfer deck depending on the meta. Spider-Ham is actually now a 2/2, and we're going to drop him in B tier. He has a very good ability. You need a 2-cost card in your deck. I do think there are better 2-cost cards like Jeff or Scarlet Witch. So for that reason, he doesn't quite make it to A or S tier, but he is a viable option. Spider-Man is now a 3/5. He has a very similar ability as Polaris. He moves a card to another location, but you can be a bit more selective with his ability. 3/5 is a great power for Silver Surfer, so we're going to drop him in A tier as well. Storm is a 3/2, but her ability to destroy a location is just so powerful. It works with Juggernaut being able to take over that location and basically make it where your opponent cannot win there. It's such a good combo. It's a snappable condition in Snap. S tier for Storm. Sunspot gets A tier. Being able to become maybe a 1-3 or potentially even a 1-4 cost is pretty good, and you need a 1-drop anyways. Swordmaster is a 3-6, which sounds good, but we're going to drop him in C tier. The reason is his RNG of discarding one of the cards in your hand is just too dangerous in a Silver Surfer deck. Yes, you could play him on the last turn, but the likelihood of doing that is somewhat low, and so for that reason, he's just C tier. Thor is A tier. He's great in a Silver Surfer deck. The likelihood of drawing Mjolnir and have Thor go up to a 3/10 is just too tempting not to put him into a Silver Surfer deck. Venom is actually not a terrible card to play in Silver Surfer. He's actually a 3/3 despite what it says here. We're going to drop him into B tier. The reason is at 3 power, he gets to eat anything he's played on and keep that power. This is good for a Monster Island, maybe even a Squirrel, or he could get rid of some other card that is messing you up at that location. So for that reason, Venom is actually a B tier card that has a place in Silver Surfer despite being a destroy card. Vulture is F tier. Not quite 3-4 power, which I consider to be kind of the minimum power needed if the ability is not useful in a Silver Surfer deck, and his move ability just isn't useful in Silver Surfer, so for that reason, he's just not useful. Wave is D tier. Her ability can be useful in a Silver Surfer deck. Perhaps you can play her out to restrict the play of your enemy, but that's a pretty niche situation in a Silver Surfer deck because oftentimes you want to be playing multiple cards in a round. Wolfbane is B tier. It's a 3/1 card, but when you play it out on 3 other cards at a location, it goes to a 3/7. So although its ability may or may not be able to be used to the full, it gets +2 power for every card at a location on your side. So it's a great card if you're able to play it into a almost full lane. Yondu is going to go to C tier. It's definitely not the best 1-cost card you can play in a Silver Surfer deck, but it does destroy one of your enemy's cards, which could mess them up bad enough for them to want to retreat. So for that reason, we are going to put him in C tier. Masternaut from the future here. Of course, while I was editing this video, the over-the-air update came out and there were some changes to some cards like Crystal here. She is now a 3/3 and makes you draw a card. Now, this is great in Silver Surfer. Drawing a card is so powerful in Marvel Snap in general, and this allows you to have 1 extra draw to try to get your Silver Surfer card while still providing you 3 power. So for this reason, we're going to put Crystal at B tier. Likewise, Shanna got a little bit of a change. She is now a 3/2, but her ability is still to add a 1-cost card to each location. Now, this isn't the best for Silver Surfer. She's only a 3/2, not a lot of power. I am going to put her at D tier. She is able to reach perhaps locations that you can't play into, and she does give you free cards, but her utility in Silver Surfer just isn't that great. And that's it. Those are all the cards that I see as viable, or maybe not so viable for 3-cost cards to play in a Silver Surfer deck. Did I miss any? Let me know in the comments below. Tell me what your favorite 3-cost cards are, or other cards that are your favorite in a Silver Surfer deck. I would love to hear. And if you have a unique Silver Surfer deck that you want me to try over at Twitch TV/TheMasternaut, drop it below in the comments and come on over to Twitch and let me know, and I'll try your deck out. Also, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps. Commenting also really helps the algorithm to push this video to others so they can discover it as well. Take care.